how to make a realistic tombstone. First of all, we're going to look at our old one that we're replacing. It was cool for a long time, but the plaster has been cracking and breaking off, and it's also very heavy. You can see it has a wood frame and other materials, and the plaster is very heavy. We actually try to store that up in a loft, and it's just a pain getting in there. And so this tombstone we're going to build, I want to make it so it looks pretty similar as far as color and texture, and make it match with the rest of the scene that's set up. To start off with, you're going to need 2 4x8 sheets of styrofoam, construction styrofoam, 3 inches thick. You can get this at your local hardware store. Cut one of those sheets down to 2 feet wide, and when you put this together, you can make basically a 6 foot in circumference stone. In addition to the liquid nails that we're going to use to glue it together, also for support, both for construction and for longevity, I'm using a bunch of dowels throughout this to connect them horizontally and vertically. Plenty of dowels is going to help keep it strong. Important here is using heavy-duty liquid nails, both for gluing this together, and you'll see how we use it to make texture instead of the plaster technique. Start gluing this thing together, stagger the pieces, and then get something heavy like tires or something to weigh it down and keep it weighted overnight. You're going to definitely want to let this first step glue overnight so everything is very sturdy. The next day, you're going to then fill in the cracks with the liquid nails, measure out your circle, get a real fine-tooth little handsaw and start cutting away at the edges. Mine actually needs to be a little over 6 feet, about 6 foot 5 inches, so I actually have to add a section to it. A neat thing about using styrofoam is that it starts with a flat surface, but to get a textured surface, get a little blowtorch. Now you have to be careful, things are flammable. The styrofoam can be flammable, and also the liquid nails is flammable. So you have to be very careful, you have lots of ventilation, wear a mask, and just take your time. I strongly suggest practicing what you're going to do with this torch and the styrofoam outside on some scrap pieces, so you see exactly how it's going to work, because you can over melt it and burn a giant hole, and you don't want to do that. One important step I actually forgot to record originally was using the liquid nails. Get your glue gun, and you're going to just put it out onto the surface, and then use a cheap trowel and just spread it around, and so it's all looking kind of uneven, and it'll look way better than plaster. I did most of the way around, taper the outside edge so that it'll lean towards the wall and not fall out onto the actor playing the angel. Rounding off the edge a little bit. Put it all the way around. So now we have the styrofoam part all glued together and texturized all the way around the edge. I'm going to go into the fun part of painting. So I have this actually mismatched paint that I got for a discount on for some light gray to start it off with. Then I have this other kind of a dark brown color that will be used for a wash, and also for some contrast paints in there. Got my brushes. I also have, for some texture, some of this creative textured finish. I'm not sure if this is going to be that great, but we're going to give it a shot. And just to report on the liquid nails, instead of plaster, liquid nails worked great. You can see though the difference between the two types here. The lighter stuff is this liquid nails projects I got from Walmart. I'm not really liking that as much. It didn't dry as hard, and it's a little bit softer, which might be a good thing, but I still preferred the heavy duty. It dries harder and faster. All right, so here we are about to paint. One quick comment. It was actually really cool to get black styrofoam versus the blue, because if this chips, a little bit of blue shows through, it's a little weird. But if this chips and a little bit of black shows through, it's not going to be as noticeable, especially from the audience. now we're just going to get this paint on there. It's going to be real. This is the base coat, and it's going to be going real thick. And once that dries, I might do a whole second coat. The one thing to be sure is you want to get flat. You don't want glossy. Unless you want a glossy looking rod, you can. To get a more natural stone look, make sure you get flat color. One of the mistakes I made is not taking care of the seams good enough. So it makes a bigger headache later trying to get them lines out of the stone. You want the stone round and natural looking, not these straight lines. So what I got here is what I should have done, which is added some masking tape and then put the plaster over top of that, and it would help with the seam quite a bit. All right, so we have a couple of coats of the light gray, and now I'm going over with, I found a nice earthy brown that I'm going to go over and fill in some of these holes or divots, kind of smeared around. You get pretty liberal, because once this layer here dries, then I'm going to go over dry brush it. Then I got another plan that I'll show you a little bit to get a really awesome textured look. And by having the original coat kind of wet still, allows you to do a little bit of a wet blend. So you're getting different shades, so it's not just two shades of brown and gray. There's going to be all kinds of different shades. Because nothing is really one color. If you look at something, everything's got shades in it. So I'm just going to keep doing this, and also dabbing to help get rid of some of the light. Because if you go like this, you see the paint stroke. So I'm going to dab in there, and it also helps get down into the cracks and the crevices. Okay, so now I have the textured layer done all the way around. Got a couple of fans here to help it dry a little faster. And if you're doing this in the cold, where it's cold out, it's going to take a lot longer to dry. And so, try to get just a random natural texture. And the next step was, after this dries, is to do basically a dry brush of the original gray again. Alright, so now that the main contrast is done, we're going to go back over with the light gray, and we're going to dry brush it. So dry brushing, in case you don't know, some people do, but just get a little bit on your brush. You don't want very much. Get most of it off, and then you just start going over it. So your brush it's not really 100% dry, but pretty close. And so you just work on it until you're happy with it. It's going to allow some of those ridges to pop. So we're almost at the last step here. I got this create a textured finish. I'm not going to put on hard. I'm going to sprinkle it on and just give a light brush just to give a little bit of a speckled sand look, kind of like what the rest of the wall out there looks like. So it blends in really good. All right, bar any final touches and touch-ups, that's about it. Have fun with yours. Plan for about 3 to 3.5 days to build something like this. And that's the stone all done, and I think it looks pretty good. Matches the rest of the scene pretty well. It's not super heavy. It's a little bulky to move around by yourself, but it's pretty lightweight. A couple other details we ended up, it's not in this photo, but we did end up repainting the trench that the rock rolls into to give it a more rocky look. Also, if you notice to the left there's a little mini boulder rock stone. I actually made that several years ago out of styrofoam and actually used plaster on that one. However, it was actually meant for a garden scene and doesn't quite match this set, so we are going to repaint this. So bonus, we're going to repaint it and use the same colors and techniques as we did to make the big stone. I'll do one more step after this, but here's a good example of how that dry brush effect works. And our last touch on this rock to make it blend in with the rest of the tomb scene. Don't put it on too heavy, just spray it on almost like sprinkling it. Put it a little bit heavier towards the bottom. Consider the light source. The light's going to be a little more from the top, a little darker down on the bottom. So that's it. Thanks for watching. Bless you and bless your projects.